February 2020 brought a pandemic that sent a shockwave through the travel industry. And as a byproduct of that shockwave, COVID-19 sent a certain subsection of the real estate market spiraling out of control. It was widely reported that in the months of April, May, and June, tenants were having a hard time paying their rent, and the rate of lease default was on the rise. Not reported, though, in these articles was the sharp increase in business-related lease defaults for apartment complexes, businesses specifically in the rental arbitrage space. This YouTube channel has access to many real estate developers and owners. And the small sample of owners that we were able to speak with that disclosed these details stated that the vast majority of lease defaults experienced in the spring and summer of 2020 were businesses defaulting on their rent, where their regular tenants who lived in these spaces themselves were able to make their payments almost entirely unaffected by COVID-19. If you're familiar with this space, you'll know these names: Sonder, Stay Alfred, Zeus, Domio, Lyric, Casa, and Oyo. These businesses rent properties owned by someone else, they furnish these properties, and then they relet them on a public forum, places like Airbnb, Booking.com, TripAdvisor. Some of these companies have survived, and some of these companies have since gone out of business during coronavirus. But even the ones that have survived have taken a huge beating in the space. Sonder has backed out of major agreements with developers in cities like Philadelphia, where they were queued to take entire buildings, hundreds of doors at one single property, and they've since left those deals behind. Sonder may have survived because they were smart with the way that they wrote their leases. In these contracts, it states that if a recession were to happen, that Sonder would get free rent concessions from the landlord, where they could forego paying a month, 2 or 3 months of rent even in these instances. These lease terms have partially come to fruition, leading to a backlash from landlords who are seeking to oust Sonder from their properties or sue them for extra monies that they feel like they are owed for the use of their space in light of these contracts. But it gets worse. For the companies that went out of business, some abandoned their leases without word or warning entirely, walking away from buildings without paying rent or removing their furniture. I am standing inside of an apartment that was previously rented by Stay Alfred at a building called the Statler in downtown Dallas. What I am about to show you is the condition that Stay Alfred left this apartment in without word or warning to the building. The building had to discover later the condition of the property when Stay Alfred, after the fact, let these buildings know that they have gone out of business and they have no intention of paying their rents or removing their furniture. Many buildings were put in hard situations because they have to spend extra labor and money on storage to remove all these furniture and possessions and re-clean these apartments so that way they can find new tenants to stay in these spaces, causing these buildings to go potentially months and months without the ability to re-let them to any other person like a traditional tenant. And meanwhile, evictions were prevented. So Stay Alfred in this case still technically had possession and access to these properties where their furniture was, even though they had no intention of coming to get that furniture, and these buildings were stuck waiting for a resolution or for Sonder to proactively say, we are dissolving these leases and you can have possession back. Until that time, buildings could not legally go in and remove the property or relet them to another tenant because of the technicality of possession. Some property management companies got smart. Instead of wasting time removing the furniture, they actually repurposed these units as furnished rentals at a slight extra premium where someone could rent the entire space with furniture. Greystar, particularly in Houston, at multiple of their properties that used to work with Stay Alfred, pulled this off. This has led to a rift in the industry now where major property management companies are either scrambling to find another operator just like Stay Alfred in the wake of this loss, where other ones have run completely the opposite direction and never want to work with rental arbitrage partners ever again because of the damage done to the cash flow of these businesses, thank you to irresponsible businesses like Stay Alfred. Which leads us to why I am standing in this apartment and am capable of showing you the condition of this space. As part of our negotiation with the Statler to short-term rent at their property, we took over some units that were previously rented by Stay Alfred. The Statler gave us this unit in the exact condition that Stay Alfred left it in and put us in charge of either removing the furniture, repurposing the furniture, but otherwise using it for our general needs. We've negotiated similar deals with other property management companies who've had other companies such as Casa back out of leases prior to them taking them or activating leases. So some of our property acquisition as we speak are deals that were only made possible because another company negotiated a contract and then backed out of that contract, allowing us to take over the deal immediately upon their exit from that deal. But for this video, we are focusing squarely on the Statler and Stay Alfred and the condition that they left their units here in Dallas. And you can extrapolate that because they canceled over 2,000 apartments across the country, that there are so many other properties in major cities that were left in this exact same condition. It was irresponsible, and honestly, it was rude. Now, allow me to show you this 2-bedroom property in downtown Dallas and the condition that it was left in when Stay Alfred released possession back to the Statler. Firstly, you can see that this dinner table was left in this exact condition with remnants of food and sheets and tools. Also, the kitchen was left in unclean condition, including the coffee pot with coffee grounds still left in the coffee machine for months. The only addition since they moved was this TV that we mounted on the wall ourselves. The only thing that Stay Alfred took with them when they left was all of the TVs from all of these apartments, leaving behind fast food, wrappers, and used towels all over the apartment complex. This includes wet laundry left in the washer and dryer for months. That will smell bad when we open these. It does appear that they partially cleaned before deciding to move out because they did leave these bedrooms in workable condition. But as said prior, Stay Alfred did take all the TVs off the wall, leaving these holes behind that the building has to repair before we officially take possession. And it goes without saying that food particles all over the floor were expected. Some of the apartments we acquired are in a more optimistic position where it looks like Stay Alfred attempted to remove furniture thinking that they could complete a successful move out, but they abandoned this one mid-move out. As I said before, they took all the TVs. And this apartment, I walked in to find a full coffee cup that's been there for multiple months, and otherwise an apartment in complete disarray. It appears they attempted to move out of this one as well, but ran out of resources and abandoned the move out halfway through in this apartment as well. Now, Stay Alfred had 20 apartments at this property. They abandoned 4 total properties that we know of in Dallas alone, 3 properties that we know of in Houston, for over 100 total doors that are most likely left in this exact condition. Now, it's not bad for everybody because there are short-term rental operators such as my company, Pad Suites, that did well during the pandemic, and we were cash positive and were able to reinvest into growth, taking advantage of opportunities such like this one where companies like Casa or Stay Alfred dropped the ball. But what this could lead to is a tarnished reputation for short-term rental operators across the country as major property management companies see that their level of default was higher with corporate leases or business leases than regular residents. So if you're a short-term rental operator or are considering getting into the business, be prepared to discuss your financial stability as you enter into agreements with the buildings. Buildings may want higher deposits, increased insurances, or other assurances to make sure that you don't abandon them the way that they were during COVID-19. It is safe to say that it's been a learning lesson for everybody. But as I've said previously in this video, where others have failed, it has led to opportunities for other companies such as ours. I would love to know what you think. Should landlords start to be more strict with their corporate leases or LLC leases in light of the fact that a company like Stay Alfred went out of business and abandoned so many leases? Do you think that this should be just compartmentalized, where Stay Alfred's failures should say just Stay Alfred's failures and the rest of us can move on? What do you think landlords should do? What do you think short-term rental operators should do? And what do you think this means for the short-term rental space moving forward? I, of course, always have my opinions on how this is going to affect the real estate market, but I am more so focused on the opportunities created by this because of my personal bias in the industry. That's why I would love to know what you think. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you on the other side.